Rise Up See Red podcast, all about the Arizona Cardinals and the NFL, featuring insider and outsider perspectives. Enjoy the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Now here are your hosts, Jess Root and Seth Cox.
Hello, Arizona Cardinals fans, and welcome to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. I'm your host, Jess Root, from CardsWire.com, the NFL Wire Arizona Cardinals site from USA Today. My co-host is Seth Cox from RevengeOfTheBirds.com, the SB Nation Arizona Cardinals site, and also one of the hosts of the original Draft Breakdown podcast, which is becoming ever so relevant because the Arizona Cardinals season was over and now is destroyed. As in the show 385, episode 385, we not only will be talking about another loss, another home loss, Monday Night Football to the New England Patriots, but the absolute worst thing that could happen did, and that was a major injury to quarterback Kyler Murray. Third play of the game, tears his ACL, ending his season and putting the start of next season in jeopardy. So that this is not your highly optimistic show. It's just kind of what we're kind of known for. There's literally nothing left to look forward to in this season. And so what we're going to talk about in this show, we're going to react to the Kyler Murray injury. What is the impact now and the offseason? We'll talk about what happened, what went wrong against the Pats, if there was any bright spots. Is there anything left to be excited for? And then we'll look ahead to their Week 15 game against the Denver Broncos, which looks like it could be a thrilling matchup between Colt McCoy and Brett Rippon. Who thought?
I'm very excited. I don't know what you guys are talking about.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. Seth,
Do you have the funeral music playing in the background, by the way?
I mean, we might as well. So the Cardinals were mathematically eliminated from the division with the 49ers winning with Brock Purdy. Oh my gosh. Jeez, I don't get it. I don't get anything about the NFL right now, but the San Francisco 49ers look unstoppable right now. You know, the 35-7 win over the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and they did it with Brock Purdy at quarterback, and because Jimmy Garoppolo is done. And then Seattle Seahawks lost to the Carolina Panthers, and now Steve Wilkes in his interim gig there with the Panthers has now won more games in half a season than he did in an entire season in his official head coaching job here in Arizona. And he's got that Carolina team playing well right now. The defense playing the way they wanted to, and even with a quarterback like Sam Darnold, they're winning games. And so the San Francisco 49ers, if they win this week, they might act. I didn't look at the mathematics. I think they officially will clinch the division with the win over Seattle this week. I think because they will be up 3 games with 3 games to go, and would have the season sweep. Well, yeah, so they would clinch the division if they beat the Seahawks this week. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, and I mean it's not surprising. I mean it's upsetting that the 49ers have built such a strong roster that they can compete at such a high level with their third string quarterback. And it's not so much, a shot at Jimmy Garoppolo. He's still one of the probably 20, maybe even 15 best quarterbacks in the NFL. But to see them be able to nurture and play Purdy like they are, and then you see kind of what's going on in Arizona where, Kyler Murray gets injured. You expect this team to be able to compete with Colt McCoy, and they lead 13-10 at half, and then the wheels come off.
The wheels fall off. It was
almost a beautiful portrait of what this season has been, right? Like you get the oh crap start with the Murray injury. Obviously, it's much worse than the beginning of the season was for the Cardinals, but you get the oh crap start, and then you're like, okay, they have some life. You're watching this,
and
you're like,
Vomit on the field.
Yeah, and it's like you get outscored 17-0.
20 unanswered points you gave up to that offense.
Yeah, that offense. And it did start in the first half, right? Like, and I know Tim Ring and other guys are like, why not just kick the field goal? Well, Matt Prater badly missed on
right.
a 50
He literally, like, his last 2 kicks from 49 and 50 yards, missed them both.
Yeah, and so they're thinking to themselves, like, you know what, we probably need to just go for it, try to get a little closer. He hasn't been accurate from that. And man, give it to Cliff. Like, this guy, he called 2 plays in a row, and 3 different players made mistakes. I mean, the first one, Trey McBride and Steven Anderson just decide not to block the best defensive player on the Patriots. It's like, hey, guys, if you're gonna block anybody, block Matthew Judon. Like, anybody, like, just block him. I mean, whatever the situation, it's probably best to block that guy. And neither did, and they get a stop. So now it's 4th and 1,
and the play was there. I mean, the play was there. The play was there,
and it was probably one of the easiest passes Colt could have thrown all night, and he just didn't hit it. And that's the thing, is like, again, that's a microcosm of like the Cliff Kingsbury situation. It's like
I don't know if you caught it on the television. You don't always see Cliff Kingsbury, but like
he rarely reacts that way.
It was a very visible F-bomb on television when they showed the reaction to that, because like the dude wants to win, and he's got, if you look at it on those failed 4th down stuff we've had all season, the plays have been there. Now, granted, the one against the Chargers, that was just a fantastic defensive. That was that safety. Oh, I forget his name now. It's a name. Billy Gilman read that play perfectly. It's almost that play against the Chargers when they broke up that 4th down play. That's almost nearly an impossible play to stop, because of just the way it's designed, and Gilman he knew it was coming. That little pass in the flat to McBride, then on the other one they called when Hollywood just drops the ball, and that's, there's been a couple times this year when Hollywood has had when he's been healthy, he's been fantastic this season, but Ravens fans and fans in the AFC North will tell you that is Hollywood as well. He does drop the ball when, like, he has the hands and the ability to be a legit number 1, but there are sometimes you're just going to be like, oh. And that's happened twice this year on 4th down, and then you had the one that he would have had a touchdown, and it's just, when Kyler went down, so let's go back to the topic of the Kyler injury, and it's just so bad, because the initial thing is like, you see him running, there's so much hope you have for this game, because and I did especially. I felt that this was the perfect game for the Cardinals to upset the Patriots, because it looked like they got some rhythm offensively against the Chargers. You're like, okay, they look like a competent team again. And this Patriots defense they haven't beat a team that scored 20 points. They haven't won a game that when their opponent scored more than 17 points. And I felt that the Cardinals had, if the Cardinals had a little rhythm, you'd see early on, and you're like, yeah, the Cardinals can win this game, because the Patriots in their 6 losses have given up 29 points a game. They've struggled against mobile quarterbacks like Justin Fields and Lamar Jackson. And then to see Kyler, the first 2 plays, you've got a 9-yard reception and a 6-yard run, and then Kyler blows out his knee, and literally everyone in the press box and probably everyone in the stadium knew what happened immediately, because to me it reminded it wasn't the exact type of thing, but when Odell Beckham went down to the Super Bowl, you're like, done. The season's over. Like, the season was already over, and then the one thing you couldn't have happened. It's just,
well, and to your point too, like, everybody started to kind of change their mind this week. The money coming in on the Arizona Cardinals was heavy. The line went from 2.5 to 1 before the game, and people just thought exactly what you're saying. They've struggled. I mean, they got torn apart by Justin Fields. They struggled, with mobile quarterbacks, and now you've got Kyler Murray, who's coming off a bye, assumingly more healthy than he has been, and then the wind out of the sails. And I think that's the most disappointing aspect of the loss yesterday, was they regrouped a little bit. I mean, Matt Prater misses a field goal, okay, whatever, and they still regrouped, and they still had a 13-7 lead, and they had a chance to go up 2 scores before the half, and they just can't get out of their own way. Like you're saying, like
all year. This has been a thing with the Cardinals. Just this year, like the calendar year, the 2022 calendar year has just been hot garbage for this team, dating all the way back to the playoff loss, followed by the report from Chris Mortensen about Kyler Murray, and then it's just there's been something in the way of everything this year.
Yeah, and they just can't, like you said, they can't get out of their own way a lot of the time, and that just makes it tough. So, it just comes back to figuring out what you're going to do and what you're going to see as positives. And like you said, you were looking forward to the end of the season in the sense of like, okay, we're finally going to see. I mean, Zach Ertz is out for the year, but you're finally going to see everybody else, right? You're finally going to see DeAndre and Marquise and James, and even, I mean, let's be honest, as much as we hate losing Zach, we were excited to see what Trey McBride could do, right? Josh Jones had been playing really well at left tackle, and so you're just looking at the potential positives with an eye on the low chance that they could still make the playoffs. And
mathematically, they're not out yet, but they will be after this week.
Right. But
it will be basically no matter what, they will be out this week.
And not just that, but like you look at, like you said, the wind coming out of the sails of the team, the building, and just like it makes the end of the season, which is already hard enough when you're a team that's struggling. It makes the end of the season tough because realistically now you're looking at it and you're going, what do I have to look forward to with this team? And that is what is difficult, because that being that franchise sucks. And you and I know this because we've covered those teams, specifically, 2018, but even go back to the end of the Wisenhunt era. Like, you look at it and you're like, I don't know what to look forward to, because even like the Wilkes year, you were like, okay, let's see what Josh Rosen has.
Right.
And this isn't a shot at Colt McCoy. Like, we are, let's be honest, we as fans are fortunate to have somebody as good as Colt McCoy to play out the rest of the season. But the reality is, what Colt McCoy is.
Right.
He's a 36-year-old journeyman, sub 500 quarterback.
There's somebody on your site that's got to be excited about this, right?
Right. And you just look at it from that perspective, and you go, you know what you have, you know what he is, and there's nothing wrong with that. But like, you also know that you're not going
anywhere with him long term.
No, not long term.
He can get you he can tide you over till your starter's back, but once Colt, you're the guy for the rest of the season. The season's done. And Colt he's really good. I actually respect the crap out of him, because one thing he does really well, Colt, and Kyler doesn't do it as well. Colt does what a lot of classic quarterbacks will do. Carson did it. He will very quickly blame himself. instead of talking about as a team, we just didn't do this, and then like point the finger at me. Of course we can point the finger at you. You're a backup quarterback who plays rarely. I mean, it's easy to do that. It's easy to do. Nobody's criticizing Colt, but it just the initial it just, if anything else, the reaction to when the injury happens is, you got to be kidding me. This now? That's right. Basically like everyone within the Red Sea, Bird Gang, Bird City football, whatever's happening. But the reaction had to have been not something else, and then not this. This is literally the absolute worst thing that could have happened this year, and it happened late in the year. It's just, of all the terrible, crappy things that Cardinals fans have had to endure in 2022, December 12th just was a kick in the nuts again.
Well, and not only that, but you think about, all the times that we've watched this franchise and bad things have happened, right? From the Kevin Cobb getting injured when they're rolling at 4-0, right? To Carson Palmer blowing out his knee, and they were 9-0 at that point, or 9-1, whatever it was, and you just you're thinking to yourself, this season sucks, 1,000%. The season sucks, but it can always get worse, and at least there's no major injuries, and then literally
and Zach Ertz goes down, Kyler Murray goes down. Zach Allen breaks his hand. Come on. What is this? DJ Humphrey's back injury, Byron Murphy's back injury.
Well, and now you're looking at things and you're going, well, there's no reason Murph should play again, right? Like this year. And you're not
there is a reason why Murph should play. His contract.
Yeah, I mean, but I agree, but to the point also that it's like,
he couldn't play unless his back is right. But to come, like, I think it'll be important if he can get back. Back injuries, especially back injuries, are tricky. Is you want to see him come back in the last game or two, play well, to show that his back isn't an issue, and then going into the offseason when he's going to be a free agent after he's had a fantastic season until the injury. But geez, just this, Can we just stop? What else? what do we need to do as Cardinals fans? We've endured. Like, is it bad enough that we've had to endure what we've had to endure as Cardinals fans as long as we've had? Never anything to really look forward to, and then when we do have something to look forward to, it's a major letdown. And when there's a surprise, then there's another letdown. And now we finally have a quarterback and some excitement last year. Then this year the wheels fall off, and then to lose the quarterback. And I will say this. Good on Kyler and his agent for getting him paid, because that would have been contentious this offseason.
Oh, man. And
that would have been so contentious this offseason if you were coming off that, Yeah, so it's fantastic. That's exactly why that the Cardinals. This is exactly why Kyler and his agent needed to get him paid. That fans will think, well, of course. I'll say this: anyone who questions the heart of Kyler Murray, he does come across a little gruff and aloof sometimes, but you cannot question his competitive desire. The dude wants to play, and he wants to play football, and he wants to win, in
the worst way possible.
In the worst way possible. And he just experienced, honestly, the worst experience of his entire athletic career. There are very few things that, especially as masculine, hyper-athletic men, they are not a group of guys that will cry. Really, just go across the board. I myself am not really a crier. I'm a 45-year-old man. There's very few things in life that will cause me to sob. Kyler Murray sobbing as he leaves the field because of how badly he wants to play. It would be one thing because, like, he got paid. He has all the money. He's going to get tons of money. If this were a dude who didn't care, he wouldn't care. Everyone needs to stop questioning Kyler Murray's heart. You can question the performance on the field, the body language, but there is no question about anyone. He wants to win. He wants to play, and he wants to succeed. He wants to be there on the field with his teammates. This is crushing for him.
Right, and he's a guy that lives to compete, and now he just doesn't get to. And so it'll be interesting to see how this plays out, and the rehab and things of that nature, because, I wrote about it today, and I, pull back the curtain just a little bit about Jess and I's life, and I work in healthcare, and so I'm fortunate enough to be at work today, and on the work computers, we have access to a lot of online medical journals, and I was able to look up some really interesting stats on.
Let's do that next. Because that talks more of the impact now on the octave next. So coming up next on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. What is the impact now, and what is the impact moving forward for this offseason with the Kyler Murray injury? That's coming up next on Rise Up C-Red. We're back on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, the best of Cardinals talk on the web. So, obviously, the initial impact is now the Cardinals have 4 games left in the season and no Kyler Murray. And really, can we expect them to win another game this year?
I mean, this is the week.
Yeah, you're right. This might be the week, but give us that data that you found. So, this is the impact moving forward, and this is really... this is not news that you want to hear, except for the quarterback data. It's ACL injuries are, even though more and more players can come back, there are long-term effects.
Yeah, and it's, and that was the thing, is like, I didn't realize this straight up, and, because, and Jess, Jess and I talking about this off the air, made a great point. Is like, most of these guys' ACL injuries we just don't even know about, right? Like, so this is from Sage Journals, which is a medical journal, but they did a study of players that underwent ACL repair, so from 2013 to 2018, and then they collected their information, 3 years before and then after the injury to see kind of what it looked like. So of 312 NFL players that were injured or underwent ACL repairs, only 174 returned to play, so just under 56%. Of those players, only 28.5 remained in the league 3 years post-injury. And in those 3 years post-injury, they played fewer games, started fewer games, had lower career average value, which is a Pro Football Reference metric, and had decreased snap counts. However, quarterbacks were the most likely to return to play and had superior post-injury performance compared with every other position. So if there is a silver lining, it is that quarterbacks, more than any other position, not only return to play, 93% return to play, but most of them perform better post-injury comparatively to any other position. So most of them either regain or go above their own past performance. So that's good. The other thing to look at is time. So the mean standard differentiation return to play time was 12.4 months. So 12.4 would basically indicate he will not play in 2023, plus or minus 2.5 months. So basically you're looking at 10 to 15 months recovery. 10 months being the best case scenario and 15 months the worst case scenario. So those are, and obviously this is the average. So you can't, say it works for everybody, but this is the average, 12.4 months with, a plus 2.5 plus or minus 2.5 month deviation. So let's say it's best case scenario, 10 months. Jameson Williams of the Detroit Lions played his first game since the college football playoffs. That's been 11 months.
And you go to the Carson, like I'll make a reference to quarterbacks. And if we recall, Carson Palmer, it was week 11 when he tore his ACL in 2014, and he was full bore ready to go, and through training camp. Now, granted, quarterbacks are a different breed when it comes to participating in training camp because you can't touch him, but he was full go ready to go for the 2015 season, and so you're talking now it's a month later. Carson had gone through a torn ACL before, so knew exactly how his body would respond.
And was the one he tore, I don't remember.
It was the same one, I believe.
It was the cadaver had basically given out at that point.
Yes, it was the same one. He knew exactly how it would feel to recover. He knew exactly how to attack it. He had done it before, and he was ready for the season. The problem is, week 14. Week 14 means even if he recovers at the same rate, if he can come back at the same rate that Carson Palmer did, he's missing the first 4 weeks of the year, or he is you have to be very careful with him the first 4 weeks of the year. And it means no off-season work, no off-season program, because it's all rehab, no training camp reps. And so you're looking at least the first month of the season. And this becomes the other part. He's a mobile quarterback whose game also involves running. So it isn't like he's just a quarterback. You also have some of the impact of like the other athlete type thing, because he's got to be able to come back and be able to do what Kyler does.
Right, he's got to feel like he can move like he did, and you see that with like you said, like a Jameson Williams time frame. You know, it's very rare to see an Adrian Peterson freak of nature.
And Adrian Peterson was absolutely a freak.
Yeah, and it's just rare to see that for them to come back and play at not just a high level, but like a generational level, because I think that was the year he ran for 2,000 yards.
It was stupid good.
And it was only eight months post rehab. So like that's, people go, well, you know, Adrian Peterson did it. And it's like, yeah, and there's one Adrian Peterson in the history of the NFL. And
right. And have you seen Adrian Peterson's career? He was an anomaly when it came to physical ability.
And so that's what you have to kind of look at this as, is that the standard is going to be probably, I'm going to guess 10 months. 10 months.
Right. Dennis Gardeck was kind of on the same arc as well, because it might have been week 14, week 15 when he hurt his knee against the Eagles, and he was, granted, not the same level of athlete. It took over half the season to get him kind of there.
Well, and that's the thing, is you look at a guy, I mean, we've seen it with other guys too. You look at a guy like Tyrann Mathieu. It took him almost 2 full years to feel comfortable playing again. Remember, he had to go through the brace. He had to, you know.
Yeah, and then that last year when he was with Arizona, he looked like just a guy. Now, he fully recovered and became a superstar again, but there was a reason why the Cardinals cut him when they did, is because the previous year, there wasn't nothing special about what Mathieu was doing, even like the full year after his injury.
Yeah, and so like that's the whole thing. So let me ask you this, because I think this is a fair question, and I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, but doesn't this kind of change if they're going to fire everybody? Because now all of a sudden you're not going to have the Kyler Murray chip, because one, you don't know when he'll be back, and you don't know what he's going to look like coming back, which is a fair thing. I mean, 93% is a really high number, but there's still 7% that don't come back at the same level.
And when you look at, now granted, it's not the same level of injury as far as we know. Robert Griffin, after his knee injury, was never the same.
No,
never the same.
And so you have that, right? And so you have that, 7% that's out there. But let's just say, okay, he's going to be back. Let's say it's October, November, and he's going to be playing at the level that we expect. It is, as a head coach, are you really willing to throw or go into it knowing that it's going to be halfway through the season? I mean, this isn't trading for Deshaun Watson knowing he's going to be suspended for 11 games because you already have the coach in place in Kevin Stefanski. Like, we're talking about, like, if you move on from Cliff, what coach is going to want to be like, yeah, I'll take that risk? That's my biggest question.
And maybe we all felt, I think we all felt that probably they weren't going to change anything. They weren't going to fire anyone. One, because they weren't going to fire Keim. And two, why would Keim fire Kingsbury when it's Keim's roster that he's been doing? And now it's like, with this happening, I think it makes it much more understandable why you wouldn't do it, because you bring in a new head coach, new scheme. Now your starting quarterback, your Kyler, doesn't get any reps in the offseason. So if next year's going to be a kind of throwaway year, you can see if they finish the year strong to determine, okay, this is going the right direction, or you get Kyler fully healthy and then you could pull the plug, and then you've gotten at least another year out of Cliff's contract to do that. And I think it makes it almost. I think it makes it almost nearly impossible, or almost 0% chance that they now fire people as a result of this season, because of, all the stuff that happened before now, and now on top of that, now Kyler gets hurt. How can you blame Cliff Kingsbury for any of that? For seeing, 9 different starting offensive lines, the DeAndre Hopkins suspension, the Marquise Brown injury immediately, like the play before Hopkins comes back, the Zach Ertz deal, the back injuries of DJ Humphries, and then just everything that's happened. It's been one thing after another, and I think it means moving forward is that we're going to get another year of Keim and Kingsbury. That the Keim is going, then that's going to be the dilemma. What do they do with this obstacle now? Because they won't bring in someone new to clean up a mess that they don't know what the mess exactly is going to be.
Well, and so let me tell you this too, and I know everybody's going to laugh at me, and that's fine, because I could end up being wrong. But doesn't this kind of, I don't want to say excite, because that's the wrong word, but doesn't this put Keim in a pressure position that he hasn't been in before? Because now all of a sudden you have to build better because you don't have Kyler that can bail you out. Like, Kyler bailed them out of a lot of things, and we're seeing how much he did. I mean, look at, and I'm not trying to pick on Colt McCoy, but look at Colt McCoy's last 2 starts against the 49ers and the Patriots. And I know he didn't start against the Patriots, but he basically started, versus what Kyler did. Yes, and I know they lost to the Chargers, but the difference in just competitiveness and being in the game is just so night and day, where, Colt's going to be able to compete with the dregs of the league right now, which ironically the Rams are one of, but he's not a guy that's going to compete with playoff level teams. And we've seen that. Whereas Kyler, yeah, you would prefer them to have won that Chargers game. It would have been much better, but he had them in the game. when Colt played the last 2 games, there wasn't any in the game or blew it at the end. There was like, holy crap, this got ugly. This got sideways really quick. And so that's going to be Keim's task. And to your point, no GM wants to come in and take that task, right? Because part of cleaning things up is knowing what you have or don't have at the quarterback position. And because of the contract with Kyler, there's a next to zero chance that he's not the quarterback as soon as he's healthy, and we see what he has left. So again, what GM or head coach is going to want to come in and say, yeah, I'll take that on, because you don't even know what he has or what abilities he's going to have. We just don't know. So right now, it almost is like it could benefit Cliff and Keim, because it's like, okay, for the next 10 months until October or November, create a team that can compete without Kyler. Even if you're, like the Browns or anything like that, just compete for 10 months, and then when Kyler gets back, then it should open up things and you should be able to go to the next level. And that's what you want more than anything, because it just hasn't happened.
Coming up next on the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web, let's talk about the game against the Patriots. What went wrong, and were there any bright spots at all? That's coming next on Rise Up See Red. We're back on the Rise Up See Red podcast, the best our Cardinals talk on the web. Cardinals lose 20-7-13. There was a lot that went wrong in that game, and I'm gonna basically, it comes down to one critical thing, is that when Kyler went down, it made it that they needed other people to step up. And then what ended up happening is their best players, or the ones they needed to rely on the most, failed to come through, starting with Matt Prater missing that field goal. Okay, so he misses the field goal, and which then, Cliff Kingsbury lost trust in him, because it was 2 straight field goals, because he missed the 49-yarder against the Chargers, which was, if we go back to it, the difference in the game, and then missed the 50-yarder when we've seen out of Matt Prater has been with, Andy Lee's the holder and Aaron Brewer's the snapper. Guess what? He's been nails. Suddenly he's maybe he's washed. Maybe we finally hit that point with him after that hip injury, that he finally hit his NFL mortality, or whatever it is. He misses a field goal. Marquise Brown, Hollywood Brown, has a 4th down drop on a play. It would have been a great play. It would have been a great play. It was not an easy one, but when a guy that you envision being potentially a number 1 receiver has to be able to make that play on 4th down in the worst way. DeAndre Hopkins fumbles the ball. You can't have that happen. So when you need your best players playing their best, when you lose another key player, and nobody stepped up to make plays after Kyler went down, and that came down to ultimately like that. And then after the failed 4th down, then the things just got out of hand. They gave up they had that 13-7 lead, then gave up the 2 field goals to tie the game. They gave up 20 unanswered points, and so they stopped making plays. They fell behind. Then the offensive line couldn't do a dang thing. Colt McCoy got sacked 6 times. The interception was terrible. The Hopkins fumble was terrible. And it just basically nobody made a play after that. And then the time that they did get a play, replay review hates Zaven Collins, I'm convinced.
Right.
Because neither one of those, so both of those interceptions were overturned by the smallest margins, and I still can't believe that was on either of those plays, against the Chargers and then against the Patriots, how either one of those could be overturned. But still.
No, and it made it tough, but like you look at it, I think for me there was a couple bright spots. I think the first one's Trey McBride. You mentioned, he was open on that fourth down play, and unfortunately that was like, I mean, that's one Colt usually hits. So it was kind of
Yeah.
interesting that he missed that one.
Great play by the defender to get his arm up. Like that was still a very great. That was a great defensive play, but that was a play that Colt should have done. Trey McBride also the best play we've seen from that kid all year when he just absolutely got blown up and held onto the football on that 15-yard play.
And then I thought Robbie Anderson. I mean, really, that's what we've been waiting for, right? And,
Yes.
and then James Conner continues to like. Do you think Conner was banged up at the beginning of the year?
It's gotta be the case. Or maybe is that as now we see, Benjamin getting cut from the Texans, that perhaps the desire maybe Cliff was trying a little too hard to recreate Edmonds Conner from last year with Benjamin because of how well he'd done in the offseason. And the lack of work with Conner early on never got him into rhythm.
Yeah, and that could be it. You could be right about that. So, it was just, and I know
Zaven playing extremely well as well.
I was going to say the linebackers have improved. I really like to get some clarification is probably the wrong word. I'd love to schematically understand what happened on that deep throw to Hunter Henry, because it looked like they were in cover 3. And now I'm just going to talk football for a second. Sorry. It looked like they were in cover 3, and it should have either been cover 4, which means 4 guys drop into that, or cover 3 means there's 3 zones. You have the corners, and then the safety has the middle. So you just divide the field into thirds. Cover 4 would mean that another guy, which I would assumed was Buddha over the slot guy on the offensive left in that situation, would have dropped, and that would allow Jalen to go over and play in that other quarter. So you divide it into 4s, have 4 guys in that, and then you had Ben Neiman and Isaiah playing short underneath, and then you had Zaven blitz. So that's what it looked like it should have been. I don't know if it was Isaiah that should have run the seam or Buddha should have run the seam and let Jalen come over the top, but somebody missed a call somewhere, because there's no way you'd run cover 3 on that and just blitz one guy. So I'd love to get, because I don't think Isaiah made the mistake, but again, we won't ever know. And so that's the only way to figure it out, is to get that information. And ironically, is even though he had probably his worst game as a starter, I wasn't overly upset with Josh Jones's performance. It wasn't good by any means, but you got to remember that Josh Uche and
Uche is coming on like crazy. His last few games have been nothing short of scary good. Yeah,
dynamic, super good. And Jones was moving people. I thought this was his best performance as a run blocker on the season. So, again, not ideal. I know he gave up. I know Jones gave up 1 sack, got a holding penalty, but I didn't think he was awful. And so again, we're picking and choosing here, because it wasn't again a great performance, but you had some ideas. And man, I hate the injury.
It was
for Zach Allen. I mean, did he break his hand on the pass, or was it later on?
I don't know when it was, but okay. We just finished. He's been healthy this year, and he's been if you look at statistically, I know Jordan Schultz put that out there, but he's been, as an interior defensive lineman, he has been one of the most productive across the board when it comes to overall pressures down. He's got 5.5 sacks. I think he's got 18 or 19 quarterback hits. 7 pass. He got the 7 tip passes. He's been a monster. This is the player that the Cardinals envisioned when they drafted the first pick in the 3rd round back in 2019, and now to get injured. That game was stupid, by the way. The game was absolutely stupid because then you saw Devontae Parker got hurt for the Pats. You got Ramondre Stevenson got hurt as well. Kyler goes down. Marco Wilson goes down. Zach Allen goes down. That game was stupid, for lack of a better word, the amount of injuries, and it was comically, it was not laugh because it's funny, because it's laugh so you don't freaking cry with how things went in that game.
Yeah, it's just tough, man, and so, and we do these 5 questions with the enemies thing every week, and one of the things that they always ask is about, a guy that's playing better than you're expecting, blah blah blah, and I always mention like the corners, because I don't think our corners get enough recognition for how well they play despite the impossibilities that they face. And what I mean by that is, in this game, on 20 or 30, how many passes did the Patriots throw? Sorry, I'm looking real quick. On 39 pass attempts, 39, the Cardinals got pressure 7 times.
Jeez.
Which is abysmal. I mean, legitimately abysmal. And I'm not, not to beat a dead horse or kick a guy when they're down or anything like that, but like that's so bad. And they don't play great by any means, and I don't want people to think I'm saying that. But with the lack of pass rush, it could be so much worse.
Right? The corners haven't been the problem. Byron's had a fantastic year. Antonio Hamilton's played well when he's played.
And then Marco gets hurt yesterday too, right? Because why not just like add salt to the wound?
Let's just keep doing it. Yeah, let's keep doing it. But and even Christian Matthew, getting some playing time, looked good. And so the corners, and I think part of it is Vance Joseph has been protecting the corners, in many ways with the schematically, but let's be honest, that the quarterbacks have not been the problem this year, and they have had just bad thing after bad thing happen. Like first the Jeff Gladney suddenly tragically dies. Antonio Hamilton, the best camp of his career, has the burns. Byron Murphy's playing well. Then he gets the back injury. Trayvon Mullen, they trade for Trayvon Mullen. He's injured for the first half of the year. It's been honest. It's been comically. It's been ridiculous. It's been ridiculous, everything that does. And so, yeah. Coming up next on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, Special Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's kind of discuss, is there anything left to look forward to for the rest of the season? 4 games left. What are Cardinals fans going to do now? That's coming up next on Rise Up C-Red. We're back on the Rise Up C-Red podcast, the best hour of Cardinals Talk on the Web. The Cardinals are now 4-9. We know, they haven't been technically eliminated from the postseason contention, from playoff contention. It's coming. They know they're only mathematically in it still. The best they can do is 8-9 if they win 4 straight games. There's no more Kyler Murray, so you can't really think, okay, well, let's see how the offense looks down the stretch. So now you've got what to look forward to. What, Seth, tell us. What is there for Cardinals fans to look forward to for the rest of the year? Especially now, since the people have been hoping, maybe it'll get bad enough they'll fire everybody. I don't think they're firing anybody now.
No, I mean, the Texans cut Benjamin so they could bring him back, I guess, right? That would probably
that would be so weird.
Happy.
Oh my gosh.
I mean, hopefully Allen's not out for the year. He's already out. They've already ruled him out for the Broncos game, I believe, correct?
Yes. Cliff said he doesn't think he's going to play that, which means he's out that game.
So, so my J and Cam both have been rushing the passer as well. Cam caused the interception.
Caused the interception.
My J's been giving them a little juice off the edge. So that's, I mean, so you've got that if Zach's gone, obviously, for the rest of the year, which is important because right now they're probably going to end up picking in the top 5 to 6. And so you're going to have a chance to draft guys that could impact the pass rush. So that's where you start. Obviously, Josh Jones and Trey McBride on offense continue to be people that you want to see develop. I know they just re-signed DJ Humphries, but maybe that's trade fodder in the offseason. I don't know what his contract looks like. If they cut him, I have no idea. So, but those are, obviously 2 big pieces that you want to see continue to grow. From there,
Zaven. I mean, watch Zaven's growth. He's been fantastic this year.
Yeah, Zaven's growth. Christian Matthew didn't look bad yesterday, and his limited brief time in coverage wasn't terrible, which is nice to see. Yeah, it's just, I mean, I think.
I mean, there's a group of there's a pocket of fans that's wanted to see Colt McCoy as the starter, right?
Yeah, I mean,
they got their chance now.
Well, and
I don't look forward to that. Now, other than the fact that it's hard not to root for Colt McCoy because of the type of human being, the type of professional that he is. But, am I looking forward to watching him play football? Knowing that what's likely going to happen is he's going to get hurt.
I know.
And we're going to see Trace McSorley or Carson Strong.
Right.
Oh my gosh, this the end of this season is.
And that's what the hard part is that, like I said, you are hopeful that you go into the end of the season, you look at things and you go, hey, this is how we end things, right? And this is what you look forward to. And then that happens, and now it takes away a lot of things because, like we talked about, injuries, not just Kyler, but mostly Kyler, obviously. But like the Zach Allen injury, the Byron Murphy injury that's been ongoing. All of these things start to add up because now all of a sudden you don't have things to look forward to because you don't have young guys that are playing at a high level that you're like, hey, because especially Murphy and Allen, think about it. Like those guys both need contract extensions.
Yep.
And so now it's like, do you extend guys that played really well but couldn't stay healthy? And because I can promise you, and I don't mean this in the way it's going to sound, a bad team's going to give them a big deal. Like a team like the Texans are going to go, well, Byron Murphy played out of his mind while he was healthy. I'm sure there's never been a guy that got over a bad back, right? They always get over that. And so here's 5 years, $80 million. And then the Cardinals go, we can't give him $16 million a year. So, you let him walk because the alternative is to match an insane thing. And then he re-injures the back and then you're like, crap. So that's the thing is like, you wanted to see these guys finish the year. So at least you knew like, hey, let's extend this guy. Hey, let's let this guy go. Let's get a 3rd round comp pick and kind of move on from there. And that's just, it's gone now. And like I said, it's not just Kyler. Like you wanted to see this offense and see like, hey, do you keep DeAndre Hopkins and Marquise Brown? Like are those bills that we need to pay to make sure that they stay together? And now that doesn't matter. And I guess you can look at it and say, hey, if Colt's working well with them, then imagine Kyler. But at the same time, you can't run the same type of offense because you don't have the ability to push the ball down the field. Because, I mean, between the offensive line and Colt's arm strength, it's just not, it doesn't happen as often.
Yeah, it's interesting about that. You remember last year in his starts? He's lost something off his arm this year.
Well, and that's just
because last year, I will remember we discussed how surprising his ability to push the ball down the field was when he played.
they were able to take shots in games, and now it's almost like they're daring him to take a shot.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, and like I said, a lot of it isn't Colt's fault. Like you said, the arm is obviously not what it was, but it, like I said yesterday, if you're down 14 with less than 20 minutes left in the game,
They're
it's
incapable. They're
it's over.
incapable of doing that, because the only way that they can, like with Kyler, you've got some big play capability. Colts, it's keeping there. It's like the Patriots and Mac Jones right now.
Right. Well, and he can't avoid the pressure. I mean, there was a couple times yesterday that you were like, and it's just because we've become spoiled by it, but you're like, oh, Kyler could have gotten out of that, but that doesn't work for Cliff or for Colt, and that's not Colt's fault. 100%. It's not on Colt. But that's the thing, is like, so that's why everything has to be short of the sticks anyways. And then because you're getting pressured with 4 or 5, and they're able to drop 6 or 7 religiously because you can't protect long enough for them to develop. So you're I mean, even yesterday, how many times did James Conner not even get his head around because Colt's having to throw the ball so quickly? Like that's a 2-3 yard check down, and you can't even get the ball there, or the running back can't even get in the route quick enough because the quarterback's getting pressured so much. And again, it's not on Colt, but that's just the reality of who he is as a player in that situation, because they're just going to pin their ears back and come, and they're going to dare him to make a play. And it's physically not what he does. And so unless they're playing from ahead, which was what was so disappointing about the D-Hop fumble yesterday, right? Because that put him in a position where they couldn't play from ahead anymore, especially when you were getting the performance Connor was putting on, where he's running for 7 yards a carry. It just created this win, or this this cascade of errors, and then all of a sudden, it was over before it started.
Yeah. Coming up next on the Rise Up Secret podcast, Mr. of Cardinals Talk on the Web. Let's move on to the final part of our show, where we get to talk about a game that the Cardinals might be their last winnable game on the schedule. They play the Denver Broncos, who are as terrible as the Cardinals this year. Let's preview that game coming up next on Rise Up Red. We're back on the Rise Up Red podcast, Special Cardinals Talking with the Cardinals on the road in Denver. This was going to be like the Cardinals weren't going to be able to avoid Russell Wilson, only they might have avoided Russell Wilson, because in the Broncos 34-28 loss to the Kansas City Chiefs, Russell Wilson got knocked out, putting in doubt his availability in Week 15. Now with Kyler Murray out, it looks like we might be looking at a game featuring Colt McCoy and Brett Rippon, which is what everyone was looking forward to in this matchup. I've
been waiting all year.
And so Broncos are 3-10, Cardinals are 4-9. The Broncos offensively can't do anything. I think Russell Wilson, what does he have? 11 touchdown passes, and that's after having 3 against the Chiefs. And I don't know how many of you use TikTok. There isn't. It comes up on my For You page talking about the competition between Wilson and his touchdown passes and the number of bathrooms in his home. It is Week 15, and there are more bathrooms in Russell Wilson's home than he has touchdown passes this season. He has 12 bathrooms in his home. He has 11 touchdown passes this season. And it's just, this has been, for all the mistakes that there have been with the Cardinals this year, equally disappointing is the addition of Russell Wilson to Denver, because they had a team that you felt like literally the only thing they were missing was a star quarterback. And then they got a star quarterback in Russell Wilson, and Russell Wilson has had an abysmal year. Honestly, the season he has had is akin to the season that Kyler Murray has had. He's been unremarkable. He's looked lost, and now they're 3-10. They have a very good defense, and so they're in games most of the time. And it simply is they have no ability to put pressure on opposing defenses.
I have never, and I genuinely mean this, I have never seen a team that gives up less than 20 points per game that averages less than they give up. Like typically if you give up, like 29 points per game, like the Cardinals, you don't score as much, right? But I've never seen a team that gives up 18 points per game not be able to score more points than they give up. This team averages less than 15 points per game. Less than 15, which is absurd when you think about the NFL.
Like, the NFL is built scoring points. I will say this year's different. Scoring is down. Defenses are strategically making different decisions to slow scoring. But oh my gosh, like let's look at the point totals that they've had. 16, 11. There's a 9, 16, 9, 10, 16, 10, 9. So they've had 3 games where they've cracked 20 points this season, just 3. And in their season high this last week, 28 points, they also happened to give up the most points and the most yards that they've given up all season, giving up 431 yards to the Chiefs. They put up 34 points on them. And so, yeah, they've lost 5 straight games and 9 of their last 10. This was a Broncos team that was 2-1 at one point, and now they are 3-10. They've lost 3 times in overtime. They have only 1 loss by double digits this year. Only 1 loss by more than 2 losses by more. Okay, they've got 3 losses that are by more than 6 points this season, and so defensively they are number 4 in the league in points allowed, and they are 7th in yards allowed. So this is a top 10 defense with an absolute bottom feeder offense, and they are still doing it. And here's the thing: the Cardinals with Kyler Murray, if they had a semblance of the offensive threat that they had against the Chargers, I don't think the Denver had a chance. But now, I don't know. I honestly, I have no trust in the offense right now, and Denver is good, is fairly average against the run this season. And here's the thing, if they get a lead at all, that slides out, because they are 7th in the league in pass defense this year. They will just eat the Cardinals alive.
Yeah, and that's the problem, right? Like, you've got a team in the Cardinals who has to play from in front, and a team in the Broncos that, if they get out in front, are not going to relinquish a lead. It's crazy to look at this team because they've only scored more than 20 points 3 times. You mentioned it. Until last week, they hadn't scored 20 points since October 30th. So the entire month of November, their total points were 10, 16, and 10. They scored 36 points in a month, and then they came back and scored 9 points in their first game in December. So like you said, this is just a bad offense, man. Nathaniel Hackett's been in a bad position, and a lot of it's been Russ.
Yeah, Russ. I think, I don't know. Like this, I don't know if I've seen another quarterback go from great to terrible so quickly.
And so the question becomes, if it is Brett Rippon, does he give him more? Well, he's been 52% completion percentage, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions.
4.5 yards per attempt.
Yeah, and so it's just, I mean, remember, it can always get worse. And as Cardinals fans, we just figured that out. It's going to be really interesting because, they cut Melvin Gordon. They're playing 32-year-old Latavius Murray. Obviously, Javonte Williams got hurt early in the season. Like, they've got a young stud in Jerry Jeudy at receiver who's playing well. I think Cortland Sutton's out as well in this game, if I remember correctly. And then their young tight end's been playing really well since he got back from injury, and Greg Dulcich. But yeah, they're just, I mean, they have less weapons than the Cardinals, and they have a worse offense, but they have a much, much better defense than the Cardinals. So it's just going to be, like you said, if they can get out in front, there's a legitimate chance that they can win this game. And like you said, it would be the last game they probably have the best chance to win. Now, I mean, we might see with Atlanta in a couple of weeks now that they're starting Desmond Ridder and Marcus Mariota left the team. I don't know what's going on there, but when you look at it, this could be the last best chance to win a game. And so you better come with it, because you don't want to see how that ends up if you miss this opportunity, because you could be talking about 4-13.
And
and by the way, I don't even think it's fair that we have to pick this game.
No, I can't. I can't. Like, what are we gonna do? These are two terrible teams with their backup quarterbacks. The offense. This is gonna be an unwatchable game. It's gonna be unwatchable. I'm certain of it. And
I'm so excited to work on Sunday.
I'm like, if there's one thing I can take solace in, it's not a home game. I'm sitting on my couch this time.
Yeah, and that's what it'll be. I mean, for you, it's a little more difficult because you don't drink, and so that's usually an easy way to get through this game. But yeah, I mean, that's just the reality, man. It's a tough game, and it's one of those situations where it's a tough game too, because the other team's really bad as well, and so the reality becomes, if your team doesn't play well and the other team plays well, it's tough to watch. Whereas at least if both teams are playing poorly, you're like, well, at least both teams are awful. but if your team's worse than the 3-win team, you're like, oh man, and that just makes it even worse. So let's hope for a quick lead, and then the Cardinals go from there.
Hopefully. But no, we're not making a prediction on this game because this game is going to be awful. Hey, I think has the season broken us? Has the season broken me? I think it has. I think the season has broken me. Now, am I saying fire everyone? Why? Why fire anybody at this point? Why?
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing is, like I said, I would love to get people's feedback on why a coach would be interested in this job with what's going on, and like I said, the uncertainty.
And they're going to have a top 5 pick, and it's still going to be Steve Keim making the pick. So hey, Cardinals fans, let's look forward to 2024 when they finally clean house.
or they do the right thing and they're competitive next year, and when Kyler comes back, you can be excited again. Maybe,
but we're not excited right now. We'll be back next week. Seth will not be on the show. I'll line up. I'll see who else can come on the show. Otherwise, it might just be me. I don't know.
Yeah, we might have to pay somebody to get on this show, man. This is getting tough.
All right, this wraps up this edition of the Rise Up Seared podcast, the best of Cardinals Talking Web. This is episode 385. That's Seth Cox. I'm Jess Root. Sorry you guys are Cardinals fans. I apologize on our end. We wish it would be better. I wish we could be happier because this season we're finally broken. We'll be back again next week. Thanks for listening as always.
Thanks for listening to the latest edition of the Rise Up See Red podcast. Listen to previous episodes and subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, Audioboom, or many other podcast platforms so shows are delivered directly to your mobile device. Please give the show a 5-star rating and always support the sponsors who support the show. We'll be back soon for the best hour of Cardinals talk on the web. Rise up, Red Sea, be Red, See Red, and of course, Rise up, See Red.